The topic for the next session is decolonizing science, ethical approaches required. Decolonizing science, ethical approaches required. And our speaker, Professor Oyewale Tomori, is a past president of the Nigerian Academy of Science with experience in virology, disease prevention and control. He was at the University of Ibadan from 1971 to 1994 and later served as the pioneer vice chancellor of the Redeemers University in Nigeria from 2004 to 2011. From 1994 to 2004, he was the virologist for the WHO Africa region, establishing the African Regional Polio Laboratory Network. He has served and continues to serve on numerous national and global health advisory committees. In 1981, he was recognized by the US CDC for contributions to Lassa fever research. In 2002, he received the Nigerian National Order of Merit, the country's highest award for academic and intellectual attainment and national development. He has authored and co-authored over 180 scientific publications. He is currently president, West Africa Network of National Academics. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome to EXCEL-RITE Professor Oyewale Tomori.
Thank you very much. After you have eaten pounded yam, it's not easy to... So it took me some time to get off my seat. And actually, this is my first time here, and this is wonderful. I'm really so excited about what I'm seeing. This is so beautiful. Even your toilet rolls are very soft. You know, not like the sandpaper I use at home. I've been to the toilet 4 times now just to enjoy the toilet roll. And you know, this is EXCEL-RITE. You know, in Nigeria, we do a lot of things. But I like the title. We do excel wrong in Nigeria. You know, this is a difference between the two. But we excel in doing the wrong thing in this country. So you can know why I'm really excited. But having said that, who is funding this program? I don't want to know whether it's from this thing, but then when you want to decolonize, you have to have money in your pocket to decolonize. These are some of the things that you and I need to understand. And when we're talking about decolonization, it means you have to do something on your own. Let me, before I say I'm giving, so briefly I'm going to look at decolonizing, colonizing and decolonizing, because I think it's necessary to know where we're starting from. And then I want to talk about science. Most of the science and ethics have been said today, so I'm going to skip through most of that one. And I'm saying, how do we ethically decolonize science? You know, not doing it like they did to us. But whether you like it or not, colonization is totally unethical. Let's not deceive ourselves, whatever form it is. I didn't want to go too far by saying decolonization and Holocaust, but some people say that's not fair. But we're all talking the same thing. I'm going to conclude with confusion, contusion, and conclusion. When you get to that one, you know, I don't even know what those ones mean. So the first thing I did was to decolonize myself. You know, I used to be Oyewale Tomori, DVM, PhD, XYZ, ETC. The last one, ASO, ASF. I don't even know the meaning of that one again. Anyway, whatever it is. See the real me decolonized on the other side. I am Oyewale Omokokoma Ki Ateniwijo, Abelejo Koju, Manjejo Boro Kesen Kwata Kura Boys of Orgodaberin Willem. That's me. That's me decolonized. You know, so that you know whom I'm talking about. So, you know, you have to know when you're talking this thing, you have to be practical. There's no this thing. So, colonization is controlling another group of persons, a foreign group. That's what will happen. One country takes control of the other one and takes over everything, economics, all this, and that's what they do to us. That's what colonization is. That's why we shouldn't take our colonization with any soft hand. It's a wicked thing. You better remember, and that's why it is important for you and I to go out there and get ourselves decolonized. The worst part of the colonization is not the physical side. The worst part of the colonization is the mental one. To get yourself out of that, you can't even, anyway, let me go on. So the control can be both political, economic, everything, social. They touch every aspect of your life. That was the colonization does. And their motivation for it is not because they love you. It is all for economic gain, for their own resource exploitation, or they even want to show that their culture is better than your own. They want to show you that you are nothing. That's what colonization is all about. So they take advantage to have an advantage. You need to say, you cannot eat your cake and have it. Colonization takes its cake and also have it. So they take advantage of you and they have advantage over you. So colonization is eating your cake and also still having it. That's what is happening. So what are the types? They are settler colonialism, where they come and take over and settle there and drive you away. The Americans did that to the Indians. The Boers wanted to do it to us in South Africa. So let's look at it. Exploitation, colonialism. They are not interested in coming to your place. They come in and take whatever it is you have, take it back to make their life better. Like they're doing for Niger Republic. They're taking the uranium at one kobo and using it to do all their stuff. When they are selling to somebody at 200 kobo, something of that nature. That's the exploitation they do to us. And then it's internally. There's also colonization internally. Even in our own country, some groups are colonizing the others. Let's do that. When you define colonization, there are even internal colonization. And we must fight both external and internal. Otherwise, there will be no peace for any of us. So the hallmark of colonialism is exploitation, forced assimilation. They change what you believe in. They suppress your indigenous culture and your knowledge. I'll tell you a few things about some of the cultural things that, all these things they're talking about in science and giving names. We're doing them before them. But because when writing them down, what do you say? If you don't write it down, you don't know what it is. Because we didn't write them down, that's why somebody will come to my mother's village and call it Victoria City. Which Victoria? My mother is not Victoria. My mother has been living there, grandmother before then. She's Murewa. It should be Murewa first, not Victoria first. Those are the kind of things that we begin to see. It's physical subjugation. And the most damaging, as I said, is the mental aspect of it. You can overcome the physical. You can rebuild. But if you don't, that mental one is that determines your nature, determines who you are. It's emotional subjugation, and recovery from it is that the most damaging part of it. And all you get out of colonialism, significant injustices, long-lasting negative impact in many parts, in many areas of our life. I'll give a few examples. In 1652, the Boers came from Europe to South Africa. Thank God South Africa is free. And thank God Nigeria and other countries were involved in making sure that they're free. That's how you fight colonization. Nigeria, we were a front-land state, though we were far removed from what was happening there. But because we put our money, put our resources into it, we got the Boers out of South Africa. And that's the end of colonization. We still have a problem there. In our own country, the Fulanis came in 1884, the jihad going through, and they are all the way from Senegambia. Again, in 1884, Europe was scrambling for Africa. That's what the colonization we're talking about. There are modern forms of colonization today, post-World War. Now we call neo-colonialism. It's coming on. This is characterized by many external economic dominance. They're not ready to come to your country. They have better situation. But they extract your resources, take everything out of it, and use it for their own good. And then the money they make out of it, they give it to you as debt, as loan, which are paying debt for the rest of your life. So you take money from me, you give it to me and borrow me, you lend me, that's the English word. You lend it to me, and then you now say I should pay interest on my money that you took. That's the situation where we are now. I think we need to begin to appreciate this one. It's all about on political control. Medical colonialism is still going on. It's not new. Do you remember the story of this was a paper which came out, secret report surfaces. Pfizer was at fault in Nigerian drug test. It's still going on. Still going on. We're not careful. We're not noticing all these things. And if we don't, they will continue to cheat us, they continue to fool us, they continue to deceive us, and then we say, oh yeah, we are in charge. You're in charge of nothing. So medical colonialism is not new and it's still going on. Look at one of the illustrations which I took from some of the books, how when they started about science, even science that you thought is truth. So it doesn't know about truth. Look at the first picture on the left there, showing you the difference between me and the ape. They say I'm closer to the ape than they are closer to the ape. But when you look at their long nose, they are closer to the ape, Then you look at the second one. It says, look at positioning us as black Africans as separate species. They say we are not human beings. Those are the signs of those days that they took us. And some of us took all those things as zoo classes, and we say we accepted it because they decolonized my mother, my father. So even the offspring is double decolonization. Illustration in Welsh showing against some of those things. This is what happens. So I put to you the 4 leprous fingers of colonialism. The 4 leprous fingers. The invention of a false social concept, which is called race. Then you look at the dichotomy of the white supremacy and our inferiority. They are forcing Africans to deny us their own roots, the things that made us what we are, that made us the human being. Imagine the things the people in Benin, the Benin kingdom did. All those walls they built around their place, all those things they stole, they condemn you, and then they steal what they are condemning you for, and go and put it in their museum. I mean, can you see the hypocrisy? But then we don't see it. We are educated by them, and so we refuse to see all these things that are so glaring to us. Sometimes I wonder, why did it take me? They say Europe. Decolonizing research ethics. I've attended many, many meetings. We talk too much. Conference on decolonizing, which are you decolonizing? As I mentioned today, even this our conference is not decolonized. I don't know where the money is coming from. We continue to do this thing. These are issues that you and I need to begin to look at. You know, let's be serious. Let's talk about ethics, because that's the foundation of everything. Because we lost our ethics, because we lost our culture. That's why they were able to do what they are doing to us. The foundation of your humanity is the ethics. It's the concept of moral rights. That the society believes that what you're doing is wrong. What it is, you don't do it. Remember whose child you are. When you go out, they remind you, remember your family, we don't do this kind of thing. Those are the ethical things we're talking about. Those are the codes the society has come up with and come and say, this is the way for us to live together. Moral principles, which determines your behavior. The rules of conduct, the standards of behavior. These are the virtues that we all take up that makes all the difference between that we are as what we are, that brings us our culture to what we are. But then when they came, they did things to us and forgot and told us that those things were fetish. Anyway, did you see when King Charles was made the king? They brought a goat. Did you see that one? That's not fetish. Okay. So let's look at culture. Culture is a shared belief in the things. So because we are now agree based on the ethics, we look at it. Includes, and there are many other things which comes into culture. The Benin bronze, those carvings, the dances we have, the literature we have. The other day, someone was saying that these donors come, who gives the money, dictates the tune. Who pays the piper dictates the tune. But they've gone beyond that. They're not dictating how you dance to the tune. You see, things have gone forward. So it includes non-physical elements. And when we learn this from one generation, and that's why when we break in a generation, and that's why it's so sad for us that my generation, which learned a lesson from my parents, I'm not passing it on to my own children. So they have nothing in between to know. So they don't know anything. They don't know any culture. So the culture is not static, and I agree with that. It changes with time. But there are good things in the culture you must retain. There are other ones that have not. You abide with those ones that know so. The difference between us and the Chinese is that they're stuck with their culture. If you talk about traditional medicine in culture, it's like, here we look at our own traditional people and say, But you grew up, when I grew up, there was no hospital. It was the agbo that fed me with that I'm where I am today. I was told I almost got polio paralysis. Somebody went to a village in this and brought an ointment and rubbed it on my leg. And I'm walking around like I see this thing. But then I look, now I got DVM. They say, those are fetish. But what else have I done? These are issues that you are not. So this plays a crucial role in our life, which shapes our social relationship and the terms of do. It maintains the social order. And then determines how we use and how the world looks at us and how we sense the world. Development comes around that because we're building back better on all the good things that we're doing. So the society that we have, just quickly, society cannot live without ethics. When the ethics breaks down, there's no society. And that's what Nigeria is today. Let's be frank with yourself. All those ethics, all those things you and I believe in are all gone. And that's why we have 3 armed bandits. Really, they call it 3 armed zones. I call them 3 armed bandits. The judiciary, the legislature, and the Asu Rock. They are the ones who are responsible for our problem. Now, the three armed bandits that are killing this country, they tell us what is happening. Life is highly structured. There's harmony in the society because you do what is right, I do what is right, he does what is right, and everybody does what is right. And therefore, there's harmony in the society. Again, back to ethics. That's the framework that makes the society. Without ethics, we have a fraudulent society. And also affects you, scientists. Without ethics, you do fake research. And your research, your scientists don't know anything. And no matter what group you belong to, whether you're a pirate or you are Illuminati, you belong to Odozi Obodo, or you are a thief, you are like in the parliament, they have their own code of conduct, which they follow. And that's what makes it different. That's the ethics of thieves. Even thieves have ethics. So, now let me talk about decolonizing science. The first thing is to understand that they did something wrong to us. If you don't know that one, then you know where you're coming from. So we want to begin to know that we need to undo the past and let the present, so that all these issues and things, the racist stories that are coming up about the Western science that is over our own, I'm going to talk about a few other things. We need to understand that there is good science that has been going on in our own country. They look down on it, and we allow them to look down on it. We are looking down on it, and I believe we didn't have science if it is not Western. Mommy Margaret was saying today that people wanted to publish, and you need journals and all that thing. We need our journals to be. I was growing up in Ibadan. If we didn't publish in Nature, then your paper was not regarded. Because we thought, oh no, this is not, you have to be. And that's why some of our universities, they call themselves the Oxford of Nigeria. Which Oxford of Nigeria? Is there no Oxford in Nigeria? They said they are Harvard of Nigeria. Which Harvard? Why can't the Harvard say you are the Ibadan of London? That's the kind of thing we should be looking at. But then we've so put ourselves to the point that if it is not Harvard, if it is not Oxford, then it is nothing good. Even when you're doing great and excellent things, you still want to tag yourself to Harvard. Which Harvard? Let me continue. So we need to challenge, we need to confront. It's not a passive thing. You have to challenge it, you have to confront it, you have to fight it. You don't sit down there and say, oh no, this is colonialism, this and that. There's nothing that you need to keep on fighting. You challenge it, and you do it with fact. You do it with data. That's where science comes in. When you get the right data, the right information, you can then tell them, when they say that I look like an ape, I have evidence to say that I look like God. That's the fact. That's what you should be doing. That's what our science should be doing. Not saying, because they said it, therefore, that's the thing. So when we are fighting, we're not using gun and then gun. We are using the facts of science. We are using what we know to disprove all the lies they have told. And that's where your science becomes important. That's where ethics comes important. That's where the facts and everything that you do comes important. That when it's challenged anywhere, you can stand up and say, my science says I am the super being. So then decolonizing goes beyond science. It also affects your economy, your society. And it's about revealing yourself, finding out what it is, renewing yourself, and then rediscovery. To decolonize science, we need to undo the past and present racist theories that are on, or the colonial hegemony of Western science. We must take all the way out of it. Remember, look at it and sit down. But if you don't know what you have, you can't confront what you do, what they're telling you. And I keep saying that these practices and things we need to do, we must do things that will influence the science education we have. I mean, how many secondary schools now ever even talk about science? When I was in my secondary school, we didn't order anything. There was a class they used to call nature study. You walk around, you keep up, those things. It is some of those insects that we brought into the lab to dissect. That was the science we were doing. Today, you can't even see. The whole place is all concrete. You can't even have anywhere to walk into. That's the kind of situation. So we must, again, I keep saying it, confront the fact and the data. Decolonizing science goes beyond science, must include economics. I'm repeating some of this because I think it is important for us to keep repeating it. We need to reveal ourselves. We need to renew ourselves. And then we need to rediscover ourselves for what we are. And anything that, colonialism is still continuing, about anything, it's still continuing today, whether in science or whatever. And we're just not careful. Even the dress we wear. Even those of my colleagues who are wearing your tie and coat, these are some of the issues. I used to be Hezekiah or something before, but when I became decolonized, I only bear Oyewale Tomori is my name. I don't call myself anything, So I'm going straight to the confusion and the contusion and the conclusion. Now, why are we where we are now? That's the question. Why are we where we were before? Where we were before, that's where we are. Why has our science not been able to make any dent on improving the society? Look at the picture downstairs. That was the African Concorde has gone out of operation. But that was the story then, 1980-something. Nigeria's yellow fever epidemic. It's still going on. We're still talking about yellow fever epidemic. Lassa fever came in 1969. We still look at the graph to the right. It's showing you the graph that's showing the number of cases of Lassa fever that are going up. If you saw a dip in 2001, it's because of COVID, because we weren't doing our work. Otherwise, the number keeps going on. But the question I'm asking the people that are asking CDC people, you tell me every year I have 10,000 reported cases of Lassa fever. Your lab shows me you can confirm only 1,000. Nobody for the last 50 years has asked that question. What about the 7,000 I couldn't confirm? What am I doing about it? Is it Lassa? Is it something else? That is discovering yourself. We're going to wait for Bill Gates to come and tell us to do that research. My government will not put money into that. They put the money into other things. That same governor who would take 20 cars on his entourage from his office to his toilet has no bicycle for PHC. And you are talking about disease epidemic and things. You're talking about resource limitation. Let me just go on. Let me finish before. State of science and development in Nigeria. Today, you have these figures. 7,000 children are dying before this. Have you heard that one? I was lucky I wasn't one of the 67 that died when in my time. But these people shouldn't be dying. Why are they still dying 50 years later? What's our society done? What have we done ourselves? Where have we been? Maternal mortality is so many. We keep producing this figure, shouting as if it's an emblem, as it's a national honor to say 800 of our people died. Through childbirth. More than 10 times higher the target set by anybody. We are the third largest one in case of maternal mortality in Africa. Look at all those diseases. Say, I just picked them. Measles, 20,000 cases. CSM, so many cases. Cholera, so many cases. Lassa fever all over the place. Yellow fever everywhere. And here we say we are scientists. What effect have we made in our own country? If the life of my great-grandmother were dying like that, we're still dying like those ones. What is my science? What is my science? And that's the decolonization we're talking about. Decolonization comes in and takes it. This is my problem. This is the science I know. How do I solve that problem? That is decolonization. It's not, like I changed my name. It's different, It's So 56 years after Lassa fever was first discovered in Nigeria, annually the death and health workers are dying, doctors are dying. I'm sure this year you will soon hear they closed one hospital down because the doctors and the nurses, because the woman who was pregnant came in with Lassa fever, they didn't know, they operated on her and they got infected, the doctor got infected, the nurse got infected, and then they closed down the hospital. We say it every year in, year out. What have we as scientists done? We are waiting for Bill Gates to come and solve that problem for us. Look at that picture. Can you tell me what direction that car is going? That is the way the leadership we have in Nigeria. Can you tell me what direction we are going in this country? No, we don't. The weight of leadership, that's it, expressed. The vehicle of Nigeria is what you are seeing there. The plantain is not plantain, it's the leaders that are oppressing us, So each time I see that picture, it reminds me of my country. Why? That's a bird trying to fly, escape from all the problems. But this fox is still after it. That fox is the Nigerian government. The man flying away is you as an individual. All your efforts to escape from this country, to decolonize yourself from your government. It is what they are still there after you. They continue to read. Remember, science affects everything we do. It affects all the house we're building. Even this room we are. I was complaining to them that the air conditioner here was a bit too much. For me, you understand why it is too much. When you don't wear a cap and you have a patch on your head, the air will go through there and freeze up your belly. That's what has happened to me. So I quickly moved to where it was hot. That's the thing. But everything in this place is science. Everything. So what are we doing? Why are we not letting our science affect those things? The food that we eat, the cars that we drive, the Nigerian society should demand from us and expect no less from us. That's what the science is. Remember Nehru was said that it is science, actually he talked about research, that can solve the problem of illiteracy, of superstition, of deadening custom and traditions, of the ones that run into wasting of a country that is wasting of its people and starving. We are the number one poorest country in the world. That's where our science, even Nehru understood that. And you see what happened when you see a picture of what happened to Nehru. Our own British visitor said, what has changed, not because of politics or economy, but because of the advances that have been made in science. What have we done? Well, we see where we are. These are the questions you should be asking. Again, this is even our own Oyewale. He says science is linked to, if not to economy and all that. Again, trying to show you how important science is. Now, the exploitation of science, I'm just giving some of those things that where science has come in other parts of the world. Human genomics, they invested in it and they're raising more money out of it. The internet, all of us are fighting. It was done by the US Army. They spent almost, I can't remember how money, 25 million or something, and over a 25-year period. Eventually they got it. Today everybody's using the internet. But who is reaping the money for the internet? We are paying to MTN. MTN is paying to that one. The US government is collecting the money. Whoops. I knew somebody was going after me today. They wanted me to stop talking, but they won't succeed. I told them I knew it was coming. So when the tariff, what's his name? Trump, sorry. When Trump decided he was going to stop all those things, something great happened. The Nigerian government approved $200 million to fill the gap. I'm sure you all read about that one. And that was the first time in my life that this country made me proud. But then, after saying that, we need to ask the question. And I asked the minister and those who were there, I said, but where was this money before? And if Trump had not brought this tariff, what would we have used the money for? They didn't answer me. But that's the thing, we need to continue to ask those questions. If this money was there because Trump put the tariff, where was it before? If the tariff didn't come, what would we have done with the money? Buy more cars for the legislator or something like that, or share the money. These are things that you and I need to begin to challenge the situation for. Let me move on. I'm going to my concluding remark. Is Africa poor? Are we resource limited? Are we resource constrained? And let me ask the question. That's Africa's natural resources. You see, I hope you can see down there. Look at that. Every country in Africa has something. Oil, coffee, or whatever. Look at that map. It shows how rich we are in Africa. And yet, we have been colonized to think that we are resource limited. Even some of you are sitting down here. You write in the Africa, I'm from a resource limited country. Which, Abi, in your essays. You see, but you are not limited. You are resource wasteful and you are resource squandering. There's a difference between the two. And if you don't know your problem, you'll never find a solution to it. When you say you are limited talks about handicap. That's how we go begging for everything. But when you know you are wasteful and you are listening, you know who is wasting the money, you know who is squandering the money, you go after the person. Huh? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So you go after the person. More pictures shows how rich Africa is. Look at all that thing. See what is happening. Anywhere you go, then you tell me we are resource limited. This is Nigerian oil. You see that map you see on there? Actually, I formed there. This was when they were tapping oil from the main source at the Delta, where they take money. People siphoning the money out of the distance. These are the kind of amount of money that went out of Africa, which never came in. So what really do we do with our resources? These are the questions, and that's part of the decolonization we're talking about. We need to decolonize ourselves. First, we are colonized. Some people are colonizing us even in our own different places here. We need to decolonize ourselves. Get rid of those people. If you're not aware, you will not know what to do. What are we doing with the untapped resources? What are we doing with the unused resources? What are we doing with the underutilized resources, the one that has no value? What are we doing with the resources that have been looted, resources that have been stolen, and resources that have been wasted? What are we doing with them? Let me look at that. Africa, we have become the menu for the other parts of the world. So they lay Africa on the table, and they take all our Zambia copper soup, they take the Guinea bauxite salad, they take sweet Nigerian oil, they have the new high nuclear uranium from Niger Republic. They take coltan from this thing and sit down there. So we, the so-called limited, are the ones they are feeding on. Europe, everybody. That's part of the colonization that came to us. We are not able to answer to look at it that no, we have these ones. They know, but we don't know. And then instead of doing something about it, we wouldn't. Africa, if you look at that picture, all of you are working with African CDC, AU. Do you know that the AU building itself was funded by China? The African CDC was built by China. And then you are talking of decolonization. Is it that we don't have money? When Biden calls African leaders, they all troop to whatever, to Washington. When it is time to hold AU meeting, you won't find them there. So these are the issues, these are the problems. Now, I was mentioning something about colonialism. India was colonized like us, wasn't they? Weren't they? They were colonized like us. In 1947, they were out in Canada begging for penicillin to take care of tuberculosis. When COVID came in 2021, Canada was coming to India to come and buy vaccine. What did India do between 1947 and now that become the beggar and now the supplier? Why are we not using them as example? Why are we following all those other people? India did it. They were colonized like any of us, and I can name many of them. Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, they were all colonized. What did they do? What did they do? These are the questions that we should be letting ourselves, describing ourselves. That's the way I look at aid. Aid is bondage. It's like we are treating cancer with Band-Aid. And look at that picture. The hand in chain is the black hand. The one carrying the money is the white hand. That has the implication of that. When they bring that to you, they're putting you in bondage. But then it's not that we don't have money. I said, we are the aid recipient. Look at that goat sitting down on the chair as if he's ready for this thing. That's the aid recipient waiting to be sued and pepper soup. That's what they're doing to us. You know? So let me look at that. And donor and recipient. Look at that picture. The donor is waiting behind the tree. The man who is going to receive is waiting there. What's going to happen to him? That's what happened in the hide and seek of colonialism. This is what happens to you and to me. So when we talk about Africa and all these things, in the global, Africa is not part of the globe. Let's not deceive ourselves. We are an appendage. They just add us on. You remember when monkeypox came? Monkeypox has been with us for the last 50 years. They didn't know anything about it until it jumped into Europe because of changing behavior. And then it became a global issue. When they stopped the global thing, the monkeypox was still raging in DR Congo, but then they said there was no more epidemic. Were they doing for us? When I said sometimes, people say, when you look at all the things that are happening in the world, and you hear WHO, World Health Organization, WTO, World Trade Organization, WIPRO, World this thing, do you think the W stands for world? The W stands for white. White Health Organization, White Trade Organization, although Africans are heading both of them, but it's for their own people. So we have data everywhere. Some of them are not properly collected. We need to look at that. What are we doing with our data? When COVID came, everybody was ignorant. From Europe to this, nobody knew what it was. But then what were we doing? We were waiting for Europe and WHO to tell us what to do about COVID. The COVID epidemic was different from Europe and different from here. We have a scientist. Did we do our own investigation to show that this epidemic is different, and therefore what WHO is prescribing is not going to solve our problem? Can you imagine when they say 6 feet apart in the slums of Ajebule, when 12 people are staying in a room? How are you going to put them 6 feet apart? These are questions that we should be asking ourselves instead of just accepting whatever everybody tells us. These are the issues. Now, equality. When you talk about equity, I don't believe in equities. I mean, you may say I'm crazy. But let's look at this. I just want to go back to the origin. When God created you and I, created us equal. That's in his image. But the good Lord has his anointed. Why are we not all his anointed? And there are conditions to become anointed. And you're telling me there's equity. Yeah. So look at that picture. That's what they show to us, what is equality. All of them with their stool, but the runt, who is the African, you cannot see. The one in the middle is the Asian, and the one standing there is the European. So what did they do with equity? They said the European gave the African, that's in the middle picture, gave the African his stool so that the African can see. The question I'm asking, who gave each of us this stool in the first place? Was it by donation? Was it what I had? Was it my money? Now, why should Europe give me its chair? So we take all these pictures and accept them because we are being colonized. We don't think beyond what they show to us. Maybe you think my imagination is crazy to have you to think like, oh, why do this thing? Let me show you in the next slide. You know, I said the short man there is the African. The one in the middle is the Asian. And the other one is this thing. And then the question is, the second picture says that the white man gives his stool to the runt, so there is equity. As they did with COVID vaccine. Wasn't that what they did to us? They gave us the vaccine. Yes, they did. At the end, when it was closed, when nobody needed it anymore. Anyway, it was Africa. Let me reverse something so that we can actually begin to think seriously. Take the COVID issue, which I said nobody knew what was happening. Suppose it was Africa, not the world, that actually had the deaths that we're having. You know, the number of deaths were not that many in Africa. But supposing it was us that were dying, like we're dying in Europe. Suppose it was us in Africa that developed and manufactured and produced the vaccines. Suppose it was us, not the West, that purchased those vaccines and used for our citizens. Suppose it was us that had the proactive and committed government that cared about their public. So when Europe now comes to ask you for vaccine, will you give them? You won't. I mean, let's be frank with each other. So why are we complaining that they are racist? Why are we complaining that they are hoarding? Why are you complaining that this thing? If you were in their position, what will you do? So these are questions we should begin to think of ourselves. We have a totally wrong conception about equity. You do not beg or cry for equity, as we currently do. You fight, not physically, but you use your resources, all those untapped resources which I was talking about, all those stolen resources that we're talking about, all those wasted resources I'm talking about, you use it to fight for equity. When you bring nothing to that equity table, you get nothing. When you bring your raw material, you get your raw deal. And that's why we take cocoa from Ghana at 10 kobo, and then they bring it to us as chocolate at 20 naira. These are issues that you and I should begin at. This is where science comes in. What we need to do is self-reliance. We should stop begging for aid. We should, and I give one word, aid aids the aider more than the recipient. Go and check. Aid aids the aider more than the recipient. I worked for WHO for 10 years, and I knew what I'm talking about. When they give us 100 naira, $100, 60 or 70 goes back there in one form or the other. When they're going to buy a vehicle for your conference, they're not going to buy it from innocent. They buy it from the industry. When they bring you an expert who is going to manage that money, his salary is going to be more than that of your president. What is left is a pittance, in a way. So we need to begin to see the truth about aid and begin to see that we need to. And it's not that we don't have the money. It's not that we don't. Have you checked the EFCC website where they list the number of our governors who have been taken to court? Go and check when you have time. That's the good thing about when education is good. I didn't say I'm a virologist, therefore I don't want to talk about EFCC. I go and learn everything. I listed the list, the amount of money. They said there are governors. How many governors have we had since 1999? When did we start? 36 every 4 years or 30-something. Each of them stealing billions. Add all that one is more than all the aid we are begging. So you begin to see, we need to begin to think. You need to think. And then even the Bible says it. The giver benefits more than the receiver. And you want to change the Bible? So let's reverse the illegal transfer of resources. Tap resources, let's begin to look at how we're going to tap them. We must create that enabling environment for our scientists to work. Since I was born, I've been hearing about capacity building. They built my capacity in 1971. They still want to build my capacity now because they invite me to form a capacity building. What are they building? But we never talk about capacity retention, which is creating the enabling environment for the capacity that is built to stay. I was on a panel with the Bill Gates, all those, they were celebrating 30 years of helping Africa, through research and all that. They listed 1,300 people that have been treated. And everybody was clapping. Luckily, it was internet. Yeah, I wish I was there too. But I was in my own room in my distance. So it was my turn to be one of those to speak. And everybody had congratulations. Yeah, congratulations, John Hopkins, congratulations. I said, but I have 1 or 2 questions. 30 years, then they said they are going to continue, they are glad to continue to help me. So I said, 30 years of your helping me, 60 years of my independence. You still want to continue to help me. Something's either wrong with you, wrong with me, or wrong with your aid. And there was a little bit of silence. I didn't hear anything. I thought the internet had gone again. So I kept saying, hello, I'm still here. Hello, I'm still here. I said, the chairman said, sorry, yeah, we had you. We are just thinking of what you have just said. You see, these are the things we are talking about. And I ask one more question. Of the 1,000 that you have trained, how many of them are working in your country? Of the 1,000 Africans you have trained? You see, I told you. They always know when I'm talking and try to create problems. Anyway, I said, of those that you train, how many are working in institutions that you are funding in Africa? And how many are working in institutions that you are not funding? Look at all that. These are the questions you'll be asking. These are the things we should be talking about. We need to help each other. Not look at that one. The average African will say on this, but then he forgets that if that man goes, he too will go. That's what happens to us. We kick ourselves. We don't. A lot of people are talking about it. Collaboration. We need to help each other. We need to work together. Those now is the life of genomics. Time have also had socionomics, culturonomics, relevancenomics, and all the confidence. We need to have confidence in ourselves to know that we can. All you are talented people, you go to Europe and you dust them in their classroom when you get there. It's not different. It's the same you that was in Nigeria, that had no NEPA, that had no nothing. You couldn't do anything. You got into Europe. Within 2 weeks, you're excelling. It's the environment. And that's how we need to talk to our government. You create your environment. My country that has no electricity or this thing, what did my president do? He gets 10 billion to come and put solar energy in his own house. Are you beginning to see what we're talking about? Well, when he did, we don't do. So let us stop negotiating from a position of weakness. Let us fight equity with what we have. When you bring nothing to the equity table, you get nothing. And when you bring your raw material, you get a raw deal. Know yourself. Know what you are capable of doing. And then build on your past. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking to you young people. You know, this story, how many of you know about smallpox vaccination? When I asked you, they said it was Edward Jenner who discovered it. Even before Jenner, there was an unfortunate man, also a white man, who did the first vaccination. But for one reason or another, it was Jenner was given. But this story, long before Jenner, the slaves that were taken out of Africa, that got into America, when smallpox came and almost wiped them out, it was the African they called to. And he reminded them that in my village, we know how to take care of these things. We take this, give it to the man who has it, and he's going to survive. And then he goes on to treat those others. Look back on all that one. 1986, when I gave my inaugural lecture, I went to talk to one of these travelers, and he said one thing. He said, you people think you know this thing. He said, in our own time, when smallpox comes, we take the scab from the patient, we dry it in the sun. When it's dry, we grind it and sneak the powder. They were vaccinated themselves. Of course, there were a few cases that died, because the sun didn't properly wipe this thing out. He said, those ones that have been treated are the ones when somebody else has monkeypox, we take them out into the village, out of the village. That's your isolation ward. And it is those ones that are gotten that vaccine that we send to go and treat them. We didn't write them down, but it was on the cave that you people in medical school now start talking isolation, this and that. We were isolating before Ibukan came. These are all things. That's where you need to go back and study your people, study what you were doing. I'm beginning to say, sometimes we are doing it better than we are doing. I'm looking at the time. Let me finish. So, again, I just thought the name was Onesimus. That was the name they gave him. That's the picture of the guy who brought the vaccine, who taught America how to vaccinate itself from smallpox. But today, nobody ever remembers Onesimus. Nobody talks about Onesimus. He was the one who came in there and saved the people in Baltimore from what they said because of the experience that he had in his own place, in those days. Again, this was the slave. He has smallpox. I'll move on. I have just this picture just to let you know. Now, let me end with this story. Time is going. What does Ifa say about homosexuality? When I ask you, you say, how can Ifa talk about homosexuality? Is there any way I can play this thing? I will translate it to you. Expert. Actually, that's a video. Anyway, whatever. If it doesn't so. So the story was that when Ifa was asked, what does Ifa know about homosexuality? And Ifa said, yam is sweet with palm oil. Plantain is sweet with vegetable or whatever. So is man having sex with a woman better than man having sex with man or woman having sex with woman? Sex between man and woman, whether done standing, bending, lying down, or legs scattered, is sweet. That's if I'm talking, not me. Let me see the next one. On the other hand, man having sex with man is like a journey through a thicket. It is like punching the wall with your bare knuckles. It is a boil. It is an inflammation. That's the oracle. Way back before any of these genera was born. And when it is a woman with a woman, it is like wading through a messy, mushy piece of land. It is like Agbani. I was trying to look at the meaning of Agbani. I couldn't find it before this lecture. It is death upon death. That's what he first said about homosexuality. And then we turn around and say it's introduced from Europe. Which Europe? They were having homosexuals in the Bible. Let me go to the last one. So the African scientist in his development, I have 1 minute to go. The scientist in Africa must appreciate that his learning and expertise have conferred on him that additional position of being a guide, being a teacher, being a mentor, and being a beacon to his people. He's not just a crusader for his own rights, but also for the larger society, especially the underserved, the marginalized, the downtrodden, and the disregarded and overlooked. That's the role of you need to know your role as a scientist. It's not to make publication for your promotion. You were there to be a mentor to society. In Africa, we focus, I'm living with a few proverbs from Africa, which will also tell us about AIDS and other things. He said, we focus on the snake, then we miss the scorpion. That's an African proverb. I think that's from Ghana. He said, when the shadow of the tree is bent, you don't straighten. He said, you straighten the tree, you don't straighten the shadow. In Nigeria, we're trying to straighten our shadow when actually the tree that is bent. Things are falling apart. That was what this man said. Money cannot talk. This is especially about aid. Money cannot talk, yet it can make lies look like true. We hear? So they give us money, and they tell us what they want to tell us what it is, which is even a lie, but you cannot say it's a lie because you have taken the money to eat. So it is with international aid. To successfully communicate with your leaders, you must be able to know their mood when you are talking to them. That was the different moods of Mugabe when he was president. If you are going to meet him to talk about science, which of these moods will you go to him? So you must study your leaders. You must study the people you are talking about. What is their mood? What is the need for them? And that question about what is in it for them is a legitimate question. See, my time is up. Let me quickly. Finally, the last one. I'll leave you with one of these wise sayings. Where it says, a child can play with his mother's breast. Yeah? But not with his father's testicle. So, when they say, think out of the box, when they tell you to think out of the box, my time is up. This is the last one I'm going to say. I ask the question, why do you want to think out of who put you in the box in the first place? Why are you not throwing the box away so that instead of saying thinking out of the box, that's what they tell you. Why do you want to sit down in that? Who put you in the box in the first place? No, that's the reason. So that's the box of bondage. So when they say think out of the box, get out of, throw the box away and think straight, my friend. So my time is up. I want to thank all of you.